Here we are on a Monday night, the 5th of June, 2023. Below average temperatures pretty much all week long in much of the eastern part of the United States. Not a whole lot, though, in the way of rain, though. We do have pockets of thunderstorms and severe weather going on. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the smoke from the wildfires because it's pretty obvious on the latest satellite loops. All that in the long range. Where else but tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by.
Omni.
Nope, you're wrong. Tempest by Weatherflow.
Wait a
Get the
minute. Hold on. Tonight you're starting off with Tempest instead of Omni for the first time and throwing me off.
That's right. Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. The link is now going to be pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do decide to make a purchase, use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show because
if you purchase your Weatherflow Tempest weather station and any other merchandise from Tempest using the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, you'll get a big 10% off. And how could you possibly turn down an opportunity like that?
might even cover your sales tax. And brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or a professional, get your truck over to Omni and get all the mulch, topsoil, and sand, and anything else you need. 631-756-1125. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County. And the website is,
as you are all aware, it is OmniTrueValue.com. Happy Monday, Joe.
It is Monday. Yes, it is.
Yes.
And I was supposed to have my landscaper was supposed to show up. He said, I'll be here either Monday or Tuesday. Well, Monday's out. So that leaves Tuesday. You would think I would get I learned a long time ago, Joe. I don't sit around at home anymore when this sort of stuff happens. I just go about my business. And if they show up and I'm not home, then they can call me and I will gladly come back to wherever I am. So I'm not, it's just ridiculous. It takes 5 seconds to type a text message and say, you know what, it's not going to be today. It's going to be tomorrow. And no, Tom Contino, I'm 65 years, going to be 65. I don't want to landscape my yard. So there.
Well, wait a minute now. Hold on.
What?
My landscaper showed up, as he has been doing ever since I moved up here in 2002.
Yeah, but you're sitting there.
On my tractor mower, I have a little flashing number which tells me how many hours I have spent on that tractor mower. 616 hours. 616 over the last 20 some odd years. 616 hours. Let's see, if you divide that by 24, that means that I've spent 25.66 days on that infernal machine. Of course, if I were to pay somebody to be on the tractor, I'm sure I would be paying somewhere between $75 and $100 a pop. So
is that what they charge now?
Well, my son, I believe, every other week gets his lawn clipped or landscaped by somebody, and I think he pays that guy $85.
Wow.
So
I'm glad I don't have a lawn. Okay. I don't have grass. I have wild growth. And it can stay wild as far as I'm concerned. But I got a landscaper guy coming because I want to build a little garden wall near the front of my house, and I got a lot of weeds that I weeded some of my yard, but there's a lot of weeds where I can't get to it because it's just so overgrown. I live in the woods, so I let the professional do it.
I live on 6 acres, and out of the 6, 5 of the 6 acres are wooded, rambling, rustic, you name it. I mean, it's there, it's out there, and the other acre or so is grass lawn that I have to clip and do with the tractor. So it's so there I am every time I'm out there for a couple of hours, going round and round, up and down with
Oliver! Oliver!
I'm going to do that one day.
I really wish you would.
One day I'm gonna go out there in my 3-piece suit and do the lawn, and I'm gonna have Renata take a video of that, and I'll make believe that I'm Oliver Wendell Douglas.
But you need to make sure you need a hat though. You got to have a hat.
A fedora, yeah.
You got to have a hat. Welcome tonight to everybody.
So far and wide.
Yes. Welcome. Keep Manhattan and give me that countryside. Da, 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 da. Hi, everybody on the chat board. Welcome, and welcome to those of you who are watching in the background on the very silly beginning to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're on Monday through Thursday at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m., Fridays and Saturdays. If there's an apocalypse, we'll be there. Otherwise, we take those 2 days off. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn those notifications on so you never, ever miss one of our productions.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'm going to bring up the northeast satellite loop. Now, I haven't looked at this since this morning, and I was like, whoa, this is something. But, you know, with all these wildfires still going on, and apparently the Canadian folks that are in charge of these things say that these fires are going to be burning right into August. Look at all that milky white that you see back in western New York and Pennsylvania down into West Virginia and Maryland and into New Jersey, and you know, now pushing into Long Island and the Hudson Valley and southern Connecticut. That is not cloud cover, that is smoke. This is about as thick as I've seen it on the satellite loop in the last few weeks. It's really impressive.
It is, and I'm just shaking my head from what you just said that this could continue into August. This is not good. I mean, what can you say? This is an abnormal situation. I mean, I know that in the past we've been seeing this from our own country, our own wildfires out in the western United States. Canada, however, this is something completely different. This is a new curveball, if you will, and man, I tell you, this is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see the rotation of the upper low that's off the coast of Maine and southeastern New England. That's not going anywhere, and the northerly flow that is just pulling all this smoke, you know, pretty much straight down from central Canada, moves it into eastern Canada, and then takes it straight south. And then, of course, you got wildfires going on in Nova Scotia too, and that's coming down on the backside. All of this, by the way, has led many Weather Service offices in the Northeast, all of New York State and Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, much of New Hampshire and Vermont, all with warning about the air quality, Joe. For some reason, I'm thinking that the orange area is probably a special weather statement with respect to the air quality issues. So I'm kind of surprised that they haven't gone to a full-scale air quality alert in the state of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Maybe they'll play catch-up in time. But you see counties in western PA, parts of Ohio, parts of southern Indiana, parts of western North Carolina, even down into Texas and Oklahoma. There are these little patches where they've got these air quality alerts out, wondering whether tomorrow morning going to wake up to a sea of gray on the watches and warnings map. We have the whole state of Wisconsin and northeastern Illinois, including Chicago, under air quality alerts, and southeastern Minnesota. Again, this is pretty widespread, and it's not like we're going to see a change in the upper pattern over the next couple of days that's going to make this go away.
No, it's and I'm amazed if it is indeed in part due to what's happening in Nova Scotia, because that upper low that we've been watching for the past couple of days has been providing some significant rainfall right on through the weekend into today across Maine and also across parts of Atlantic Canada. You would think that the rain would be helping to tamp down all of this fire hazard condition, but apparently it's not just from Nova Scotia. It's also from places in the western part of North America that has been bringing this problem. So everywhere you look, it's smoky.
It is. And, SPC had a general thunderstorm risk for western New York into Pennsylvania today, and there's nothing there. I wonder whether, the smoke kept anything from developing. Although I'm seeing some cells now coming down north of Lake Ontario. There's a batch that's moving southward. But, I believe unless it's going to get in there overnight, but I can't imagine that it will. I wonder if the smoke kind of tampered down some of the daytime heating.
This is interesting that the air quality, when we usually see here in our neck of the woods an air quality alert, we usually see it happens usually when we have abnormally warm or hot temperatures or very humid temperatures, and they talk about ozone or smog. But this particular air quality alert doesn't mention any of that. It's from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. They've issued an air quality health advisory, and they are talking about air quality levels in outdoor air predicted to be greater than an air quality index value of 100 for the pollutant of fine particulates, which I presume is the smoke. But the smoke usually is confined to places up, high above our heads and doesn't usually work its way all the way down to the surface. So, and they don't really give you a specific reason why, aside from the fact that they're anticipating that the index values, the air quality index values, are going to be in excess of 100. So they talk about that, and they talk about when pollution levels are elevated, the New York State Department of Health recommends individuals consider limiting their strenuous outdoor physical activity to reduce the risk of adverse health effects. It'll be interesting tomorrow to see, number one, just how dirty, if you will, or hazy the sky looks. And number two, if any of us can actually physically smell this smoke. And I tell you, if you can smell the smoke and it looks rather hazy, heck, stay inside, because I'm sure we're talking about a very dirty or soiled atmosphere because of all of this.
Now, I drew arrows indicating the flow of air in the upper atmosphere, and you can clearly see on the loop everything is moving north to south from the Dakotas east to New England, and then south into the middle and South Atlantic states. Meanwhile, across the central and western Gulf states, a lot of lightning strikes going on, and you see the thunderstorms there in patches from Mississippi westward into Texas and northward up into Kansas. Those are actually all moving southeast to northwest. Or east to west. And then you go up into the Rockies, and all of those storms that are breaking out there are moving northward or northwestward. So that tells you that, just looking at this flow, that there is some sort of a high at in the western lake, somewhere in there at aloft, and that ridge is the driving force to keep things rain-free in much of the Northeast, except for up in Maine. And of course, you see the Atlantic flow that's coming into Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada, so at least they're getting some rains for them. But this is a bit of an unusual pattern for us, and it is going to keep us in below normal temperatures all week long. Joseph?
Sorry, I something happened to my microphone here. So yeah, we're going to stay in this for a while. What else can I possibly say?
Yeah, no, it's also the fact that this is about as long a stretch of below average temperatures that we've had all year.
And naturally, it comes during June. A lot of our snow lovers and winter weather lovers would love to have seen this happen in January, February, but no, it's June. That's when it's happening.
Right, and here's on the surface map, there's your low. It's actually strengthened a little bit, the surface low southeast of Nova Scotia, where I'm looking at some of these temperatures over there in Nova Scotia, Joe. It's in the 40s along the coast, and in Maine, it's in the low 50s. At least it was at, what was the time of this map? Is this the 21Z? Yes, so was at 5 o'clock this afternoon, so it was very cool today, raw in Maine, and 60s down into even upper 50s in Massachusetts. I'm looking at some of these numbers. Uh, the cloud cover, if it's not raining, it's also the cloud cover that's keeping temperatures down. But if you got outside that cloud cover, then you have temperatures that were in the 70s today across Connecticut, much of not all of Long Island, but much of Long Island, back through New Jersey and into Pennsylvania and into western New York. And then we've got this other, remember, there's another front and another shortwave that's going to be moving through tomorrow and tomorrow night, and this might trigger off a scattered shower or thunderstorm late in the day tomorrow evening. But behind it is another cool high that's going to settle in for the second half of the week. And in the meantime, in the southeast, it's nice. The dew points have come up a little bit, but still reasonable for here anyway. And weather was actually quite delightful today. We had some rain yesterday, thankfully, in the afternoon and evening for the first time in quite a while. But today it's been fairly quiet. And as we check out the radar tonight, let me just give this a quick refresh. And you can see the thunderstorms over in parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, into Texas. The odd severe thunderstorm warning here and there, also into New Mexico and Colorado, northwestward into Wyoming and Montana. Also, now this is supposed to be the beginnings of the dry season in the Southwest, is it not?
Right. Well, yeah, the dry season, but then next month, July, we have the monsoon season, which begins to rev up for portions of Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Utah. That's where they get some hit or miss moisture. Although California,
they seem to be getting it now.
Yeah,
and part of that's probably because there's that upper low that's sitting off the coast of California. But that's a fair amount of precip that's being generated with showers and even some thunderstorms. The Storm Prediction Center even has risk there, marginal risk for severe weather. Tornado risk is not there. It's less than 2%, but from northeastern California across northern Nevada into northwestern Utah, we've got a marginal risk there. This is what we're going to see over the coming days. There's no widespread areas of risk being indicated, just sort of these patchy areas here and there. You have another area from southwest Texas up through eastern New Mexico, another small area in South Florida, another small area in South Carolina. This is for tomorrow into Wednesday. Let me back up for tonight, and you'll see tonight's marginal risk in the Sierra Nevadas. There's a 2% tornado risk down in South Texas, but we've got risk areas here in California, in western Montana. They've got me in marginal risk. There's nothing on the radar close by. And up into western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, South Florida, and a marginal to slight risk in extreme southern Texas. That is tonight. And of course, I just showed you day 2 just a minute ago, and now day 3, which is Wednesday into Thursday. Again, small areas of marginal risk, parts of coastal North and South Carolina, extending a bit inland. West Texas and eastern New Mexico, northeast California, eastern Oregon, across into Idaho and southwestern Montana. So no crazy risk zones, no moderate risks, no enhanced risk, none of that. In this pattern, it's almost too cool.
And you would think that by the time we get to Wednesday, with that big, wide area of the lack of any kind of thunderstorm activity occurring over the Great Lakes, the Northeast, that we would have some drier and cleaner air coming in. But again, northwestern flow is going to be bringing that schmutz in from Canada and across the Northeast. So in a flow that normally would be a clean, dry, transparent type of airflow, just the opposite is apparently going to be taking place as it funnels in all of that smoke across the region. And yeah, Steve LaPointe on the chat board pointing out, Jacob deGrom, just getting off weather for a moment, has been moved to the 60-day injured list the Rangers announced on Monday. And all I could say is to all of the fans of the Rangers, don't say we Met fans didn't tell you so. This was a thing with Jacob deGrom over the last several years with the Mets, that he just keeps breaking down. He's a quality pitcher, but it's kind of like are buying a Ferrari or a Mercedes Benz with a very questionable engine in it, and that's the case with
an engine of a Ford Monvale.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, you were talking about the upper flow. I mean, this is our flow today, and there's your upper low that is sitting in the Gulf of Maine. But when I move this forward, you'll notice that upper low just doesn't go away. It actually moves into Nova Scotia and then drops back southward again into Maine, and then just sits there as we move through the end of the week. We're in this flow. I mean, the flow becomes more northwest by the time we get to Saturday, and it's still there's troughing in the east. It's not until we get into Sunday that the flow turns a little more west, or even briefly west-southwest aloft, as another short wave moves through with another cold front. This upper low getting stuck here it's not in a good spot. And then as I showed you before, with the way the thunderstorms are moving tonight, you can see the ridge, the upper high that is sitting right along the Canadian border, Dakotas, Minnesota to Lake Winnipeg, and that eventually does weaken, but and shifts a bit westward. But it doesn't help us in the east because we're still in this northwest flow, which is going to be keeping things below normal temperature-wise, and the fact that we're going to continue to see this smoke move along. Now, later next week, we do finally get that out of the way, and things start moving again from west to east, which is encouraging, but there's still this tendency for troughs to want to drop into the eastern part of the United States, even well into the long range, going out 16 days. So, Maybe Joe, once this upper low gets out of the way and things start to move, maybe that will bring some chances for rain, perhaps next week along the way, because you're not going to get it this week.
No, and I do notice on the 6 to 10 day outlook that the temperatures from CPC do turn to near normal for us, and they do actually have a slight above normal probability for precipitation from about the 11th to the 15th of June. So, yeah, we move on toward mid-month. Things should start warming up a little bit, and also getting a little wetter as well. And really, precipitation-wise, unlike last year where the West was like bone dry, there is on the risk of heavy precipitation, there's a slight risk across portions of Nevada and Idaho and Wyoming and Colorado and Utah for some significant precipitation between the 13th and the 15th of June. That would be a week from Tuesday, a week from tomorrow through next Thursday. So maybe about the middle of next week, we'll see some areas of moisture beginning to open up over the western U.S. And again, we may see more in the way of showery weather here as well. Now, tomorrow, because of the presence of that upper low, that cool pool of air, there is the possibility we'll see some scattered showers. And because it is a cool pool, there is some indication that any thunderstorm that does occur tomorrow could be very localized, but also very strong, with strong wind gusts and possibly even a bit of hail, not, giant ping pong or baseball size hail, but, pea-sized hail because of low top convection. So not everybody is going to see that tomorrow. And if there is any, it would be very widely scattered. Best chance probably for that would be between about 3 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the afternoon and evening tomorrow. And again, across much of the Northeast, but not so much of a threat so that the Storm Prediction Center has any area under marginal or slight risk. But they do mention that there could be some isolated activity of that nature during the day tomorrow.
I was running the temperature anomaly maps a little while ago while you were talking, and it carries us through below average temperatures into the at least half of next week. However, I would point out that maybe Sunday, in these stretches this time of year, when it's time for the cold front to approach, the day before the cold front moves through usually winds up being the one day where temperatures could get very warm. And this time around, it happened last Friday when we saw temperatures rise up into the 90s away from the coast, and it may happen again on Sunday. I don't know if it'll get to 90, but it'll certainly get. I think Sunday could see middle and upper 80s before a front goes by. But in the meantime, yeah, it's the rotation of the upper low and the short wave. Maybe there's a shower or thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon or evening, and I agree with you. We could see an isolated, stronger thunderstorm in a few spots, no question. And Wednesday, most of the instability is confined well up to the north in New England, and there's a little bit of it around on Thursday, but not enough to really, excite me to put it in the forecast. And also, again, on Friday, there's instability because there's another short wave that's going to come through on Friday. And then Saturday, with the high in Virginia, we get into a southwest flow. And by the way, notice there's not a whole lot happening thunderstorm-wise around the country. It's mostly diurnal stuff that pops up in areas that have the mechanisms to get those storms to form, like in the west, and when we showed you the SPC risk area. But we do have a front that approaches on Sunday, and that might have enough with it that we could see some showers and maybe a thunderstorm. It looks like there's a wave on the front also. Bring some rain here Sunday night into Monday, and some lingering rain even into Tuesday before that goes out. And then there's something else toward the latter part of next week, as you pointed out. GFS actually is quite bullish around the 15th. And then there's another one that approaches after that. So the trick is we got to get this upper low out of the way. And once that happens, I think it'll open the door for some opportunities for rain. And WPC on the rainfall forecast, and again, this is all pretty much what you see in the east, except for what's up in Maine. What you see up and down the eastern seaboard probably reflects what's going to happen on Sunday with the next cold front. So we've got a half, because this goes out to Monday night. So we've got areas of a half to 3/4 of an inch, and then a widespread area of just 1/4 of an inch up and down the coast. Bigger rains in the middle Mississippi Valley back through the Central Plains and on up into the northern Rockies and over into the west, into Nevada and California and to southern Oregon. So that's where it stays wet. And Joe, I want to just say one other thing here. Just a quick look at the tropics. Not that there's anything going on, but I just want to point out that you're going to start to see, actually, you've already seen a few runs in the, going to start to see models trying to spin things up in the long range, which we're not going to believe until they get into the short range. And here's, to this run's version is Sunday, the weekend of the 17th, 18th, Father's Day weekend, where it has something in the Caribbean and moving into the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not pointing to that specifically. I could care less what the models do with the long range, but I would just say that given the pattern that we're in, pressures are going to be on the lowish side in the Western Caribbean, which is the climatological area you look at in June if you want to see storms develop. So if something's going to happen, it'll happen there. Pressures are going to be low. That doesn't mean that the upper air is going to be supportive of tropical cyclone development, but just wanted to put that on the table in the coming weeks. Maybe something comes out of there somewhere down the road, but there's nothing specific that I could certainly point to at this time.
Well, you see on the long range, you just pointed out, the long range, they like to make things up. And yeah, it's better if you wait and see whether or not on the short term, less than 5 days, whether something like that is going to begin to show and develop and evolve. Then you start getting a little bit more confidence. But you start seeing stuff like, 8 or 10 days out, they start whirling these gyres, if you will.
I agreed. My comment is just strictly on the fact that the way the upper pattern is set up and the low level pattern is setting up, pressures are going to be on the lowish side. So if the mechanisms set up in the longer term, maybe something, if it's going to develop, would be in that particular region. Otherwise, we can just snooze for a little while.
Environmental Coffee House a while back did hit the tip jar, and we thank him for that. He also said, "Thanks for such a great show, guys. I so enjoy your reports."
Thank you.
And that also probably includes the silly things that we sometimes throw in, interspersed with the weather, which I think makes us stand out against the other weather.
Well, you know what, Joe? I mean, not to do a shameless self-promotion, but since you opened the door, where else but on this channel do you get almost every day, three videos? You get this live program that we do, and then I do a Weather in 5 video, which I did earlier today. And then at 6 o'clock this morning, I did a 1-minute video, Weather in a Minute. So you can, we're here all the time. I don't know anybody else that does what we do.
No, we try to mix things up a little bit to make things more interesting, and
we also dress well.
Well, as I don't know about some of the other online sites or whatever like that. They may have shirt and ties, I think, but we like to be casual. What the heck? I mean, you think about it. During the time, all those years that we were on television, we had to go each day in a suit and a tie and make sure everything was nice and clean and whatnot. It's kind of nice that you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore.
Apparently, I slashed myself, or maybe my dog did this. I wasn't aware of it. Oh well. If I'm bleeding to death, we still have to do Briller Jeopardy, so we'll just have to wait. And now it's time for Briller Jeopardy. Mr. Scott is taking care of Mother Briller. We send our best to her and to Scott. And we begin tonight, Joe. We continue with the theme of yesterday. So it's average highs in the month of June. Average June highs for the following cities. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
The first one is Salad. Salad, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Right, which is salad spelled backwards.
Oh, okay. Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Average June highs.
Average June highs.
How about 83?
How about 83? Well, Chuck Cardillo says 89. Environmental Coffee House says 84. Frank Riccio says 85. Northern Grace says 85. Steve LaPointe says 99. Now, Steve, I'm going to just tell you, you are actually closer than everybody else.
Really?
Because everybody's in the 80s. You are the first one to go into the 90s. The average high in Dallas, Texas in the month of June is 93. Howard A. just hit it. 93, 92 for Patrick Darcy, 92 for Miss Fallerite, 93 for the high in Dallas. So let's move on after that shameful performance and move on to RevNed. RevNed, Colorado.
RevNed,
Colorado, Joe.
I know.
It's a highly populated city.
How about 77?
Well, let's let everybody know that it's Denver I'm talking about.
Yes.
Denver, Colorado, 77 WABC degrees. Chuck Cardillo said 77, and you know what? You're both wrong. 82 for Northern Grace, 87 for Carol DeCiara. You're kind of in the range. Steve LaPointe, if it was a snake, it would have bit you. 83, you're just a nudge away. Patrick Darcy, also 83. The answer is 84.
84.
Yes. Now the next one. Okay, hold on a second. Is Ul on O, Hawaii.
Honolulu?
Honolulu, land of Goshen, yes.
How about 87?
How about 87? Ding, 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 ding.
Really?
You really hit it.
Oh,
He hit it. So, folks, don't
fantastic.
even try to do Honolulu because Joe hit it at 87. So let's go now to Natsu, Texas.
What?
Natsu, Texas. It's a little hard to do because of the way the vowels come out. Not Su and yeah, not Natsuo, which is Houston.
Okay.
Houston.
Houston. Houston, I'll say 88.
You'll say 88. Okay, hold on a second. All right, 88. Chuck Cardillo says 91. And Chris O'Shaughnessy says 88. And Christina Pedia said 88. And Miss Fallerite says 91 with Chuck Cardillo. And Christina Pedia says she's sticking with 88 with all of them. And Chris O'Shaughnessy says 88. And the answer, and Tim says 91. Well, guess what? It's the battle between the 88s and the 91s, and the 91s have won for the Houston.
91.
I don't know if you've ever been to Houston in the summertime. I have.
No.
Okay, it's brutal. I mean, it's really brutal. It's humidity like nowhere I've ever experienced, and the air literally does not move because you're so far inland. I mean, if you're
That's
lucky enough to be outside of Houston, you get down near the Gulf Coast and you go to Galveston Bay or whatever. At least you got to usually have a really nice breeze all day. But once you get inland, that wind shuts off, and it's just brutal. All right,
That's
so
probably why Addison Green left. Our former colleague over at FiOS One got a job down in Houston. But he was only there for about a year, and then he fled the country, or at least he fled the city.
yes, exactly. And our last one tonight, Joe, is Silopan Aidney, Indiana.
That Indianapolis.
That's Indianapolis, yes.
Yes, Indianapolis. Well, I'd say 79.
You say 79. And Maggie P said 80. And Northern Grace said 78. And Joe Gaffney said 83. 83 for Joe Gaffney. He's on the doorstep. Everybody else is kind of dancing around it. Carol DeCara, you're too high at 90. And the answer is Patrick Darcy, 82. And that's the answer, Joe. 82.
82
is
degrees.
The average June high in Indianapolis. And that's
Lindy had a question on the chat board, and he was asking both you and I, did we have makeup people when we were on television?
God, I did. Thank God. Well, no, when I worked at FiOS, we had to do it ourselves.
Yes.
I didn't even bother.
Well, I mean, you have a face that only a TV camera can love.
Well, it can launch ships.
I had a makeup lady for all the years I was on television. In fact, I liked her so much that I married her.
Ah, no. When I worked at Pix, we had makeup people come in, and I mean they were wonderful. It was just absolutely fantastic. Edie and Sharon, and oh God, we used to have a blast too. The makeup room was, the HR rules did not apply in the makeup room.
No, yes.
So people just kind of said what was on their minds. It didn't have to worry about, being getting into trouble. But it was fun. It was fun. Sharon used to tell me, she would yell at me. She'd say, "Could you hold still so I can get rid of one of your chins?"
Christina Fedia says, "Is that how you two met, Renata Rayo?" We met at a private weather. Renata is a meteorologist, and she came to the same company that I was working at a couple of years after I had landed there, and so that's how that relationship began. But she also is a crafts person in terms of making my face up. If I tried to make myself up, it was like, ugh. So without, she was the one who made me look pretty. We do the makeup, before I left for work. So I was already set as soon as I walked through the door. A lot of the people I worked with at News 12 Westchester, you could see them in the green room or whatever, a few minutes before the show, doing whatever they had to do to their face. But I was already all set for that. So,
Well, that's great. That is very good.
Tom Contino, by the way, says, "I'd love to see what Kadi Tong looks like without makeup."
Well, I'm not going to, no, I'm not going to say she's a beautiful.
No.
She is an absolutely beautiful woman.
Yes.
Lovely and a lovely person. I mean, just beyond reproach. I had the pleasure to work with her multiple times over the years, and
Very sharp.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
The one thing I would say,
she was just a great ad libber. She knew how to ad lib. Not that she's gone. She's still with us. So.
No, but one thing I'll say about Kadi Tong, if you watch enough local news, you can see, on the other channels, the other stations, other people who are before the camera anchoring a newscast. But you know that with Kadi Tong, she knew her stuff. She knows her stuff. I'm sure she does a lot of work prior, doing some, checking out of all of the stories that are going to be coming on that she's going to be reading, and she is a staple in New York news. She's been on for a good number of years, going back to the days when she was at Eyewitness News on ABC.
Oh, we're talking, late 70s to 40 some odd years.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No
you don't
question.
stick around. You don't stick around that long if you don't know what you're talking about, or if you have no clue or whatever like that. So she has been again part of the fabric of local TV news for all these many, many years. And you see her pop up on your television screen, you know that you're getting the straight story from her. And yeah, she was great in ad-libbing. In many cases as well. Tom Contino, the reason why I say private company, I say a private weather service company, we're differentiating between the National Weather Service and a firm that runs and does its own forecasts, but not affiliated with the government. They are as what we call private weather forecasting firms. AccuWeather is a private forecasting firm. And I did not work for AccuWeather. I worked for another company, but again, it's a private weather forecasting company as opposed to the government or National Weather Service.
Right. And, why should we give them a free plug? They could always buy commercial time here because, we have no shame. We'll take ads from anybody, but no matter. And
Right.
on that note, speaking of which, let's start wrapping things up as we let everybody know that once again, the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. For all your hardware and landscaping needs, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. I have one. Works great. Enjoying the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. They have all sorts of weather gadgets and gizmos in high weather fashion. Use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show and you will receive
10% off.
Yes.
Yes.
And on that note, you and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m.
We will be here. I will be here. I hope you'll be here.
I'll be here. Ta-ta, everybody.
Bye.